Imagine stepping into a world where um, every single gesture, every color, every tiny detail, really, it spoke volumes about a person's inner life and, well, their place in this incredibly rigid, beautiful society.
Hmm.
Now, imagine experiencing that world not just through words on a page, but through these vibrant, unfolding pictures. Pictures from nearly 1,000 years ago.
Incredible.
Today, we're taking a deep dive into the Genji Monogatari Imaki, or, as it's usually called in English, the Tale of Genji Pictures.
Yeah.
And this isn't just some old book or like a collection of dusty artifacts.
Yeah.
It's a living visual spectacle, a true time capsule of emotion and artistry from ancient Japan that honestly still surprises us.
It really does. And what's truly fascinating about this work, I think, is how a single set of these illustrated scrolls can give us such an incredibly comprehensive and really intimate look at an entire era.
Yeah.
We're talking its culture, its philosophy, its artistic innovation, everything. Our mission today is really to unpack the layers of this remarkable masterpiece. So what is it physically? What's the rich historical context that birthed it? What about the ingenious artistic techniques they used to bring these stories to life? And the poignant narratives it actually reveals?
Right.
We'll try to connect the dots, from its original creation, digging into its profound philosophical side, all the way to its enduring legacy. We can even trace its influence, maybe unexpectedly, into modern stuff like manga and anime.
That's amazing. And for you, listening, you'll gain a kind of shortcut to really understanding a pivotal masterpiece of world art and literature, no question.
Yeah, absolutely.
You'll discover some surprising facts, I think, about daily life in ancient Japan, explore this deeply resonant aesthetic, and maybe even find a new appreciation for just the sheer power of visual storytelling across centuries.
Definitely.
Get ready for some genuine aha moments, because this deep dive is going to fundamentally challenge how you perceive narrative art, stretching all the way from the Heian court to, well, your favorite streaming shows today.
That's a great way to put it.
So let's begin our journey by truly unveiling this masterpiece. Okay, at its core, the Genji Monogatari Imaki is a 12th century illustrated hand scroll. Specifically, it's what's known as an imakemono.
Right, imakemono.
Now, to really get a feel for its original scale and ambition, you kind of have to shed any preconceived notions you might have about what a book or a painting usually is. This wasn't just one scroll. Originally, it was this monumental set of 20 individual scrolls, like a sprawling epic containing well over 100 separate paintings, interleaved with more than 300 meticulously calligraphed text leaves.
Just imagine the scale. Over 300 text leaves, over 100 paintings.
Think about that. It was a physical, immersive, almost architectural narrative experience.
And that physical form, the horizontal, sequential scroll, it's absolutely critical. You really need to understand that to get its nature and its revolutionary impact.
Yeah.
It's not a static painting hanging on a wall, meant to be absorbed in just one glance. And it's not a bound book where you just flip through pages either.
Completely different experience.
Totally. The imakemono format dictates this unique and deeply interactive viewing experience. The viewer would engage with it personally, carefully unrolling the scroll with their right hand.
Slowly revealing.
Exactly. Slowly revealing the unfolding narrative, frame by frame almost, while at the same time rolling up the part they'd already seen with their left hand.
So you're actively moving through the story.
Precisely. It creates this temporal unfolding narrative. It's almost like an ancient film strip where you, the viewer, you literally control the pace of the story's revelation. This dynamic, hands-on engagement, it sets it apart from almost any other art form of its time. It turns passive viewing into an active journey.
Okay, but here's where it gets really poignant, maybe a bit sad. Despite that original grandeur, that huge scope, only a fraction of this masterpiece actually survives today.
Yeah, that's the tough part.
We're talking about a mere 19 paintings, 65 text leaves, and like a few scattered text fragments. That's it.
Just 19 paintings out of over 100 originally.
And these incredibly precious remnants are now split between two major institutions, the Goto Museum in Tokyo and the Tokugawa Art Museum in Nagoya. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it, about what was lost?
It absolutely does. I mean, when you think about the original 20 scrolls, with their estimated total over 100 paintings, 300 plus text leaves, what we have left is roughly, 15% of the original work? Maybe.
Only 15%. Wow.
This scarcity, of course, it just amplifies its immense value. It transforms every surviving brushstroke into this irreplaceable window into the past. But it also adds this air of profound mystery, even, like you said, melancholy. We're left wondering about the lost pieces, right? The hundreds of scenes and the accompanying texts that are just gone forever. The full narrative sweep that we can now only imagine.
The ghost of the original.
Exactly. This fragmentation means every surviving element, every visual nuance, every fragment of text, it's studied with this almost reverential intensity by scholars. It's a testament to both the fragility of ancient art and, our enduring human desire to preserve and understand beauty.
So to really grasp the Inaki, we have to place it squarely back into the world that birthed it, Heian Japan.
Right. The context is everything here.
And this wasn't just any period. The Imaki was created during the twilight years of the Heian period, which ran from, 794 to 1185 AD.
That's the span, yeah.
And more specifically, these scrolls, they date between 1120 and 1140 AD. Now, this was a time of pretty significant transition and maybe some subtle anxieties bubbling under the surface of Japan's political landscape.
Definitely anxieties.
While the powerful Fujiwara family had, long held the real power, acting as regents and ministers behind the emperor, actual political influence was gradually shifting to a new system, the system of retired emperors, or Insei.
That's a crucial point. This subtle but really profound shift in power dynamics where emperors would abdicate but then continue to wield influence from behind the scenes, it might have subtly influenced the very themes we see embedded within the Imaki and, of course, its source novel, The Tale of Genji.
How so?
Well, there's this palpable undercurrent of transience, a sense of hidden anxieties about the stability of the social order, even as the aristocracy outwardly maintained their meticulously refined world.
So things felt a bit uncertain underneath the surface polish.
Exactly. And the very act of commissioning such a grand, lavish, incredibly expensive work during a period of political flux, it kind of underscores the aristocracy's continued focus on cultural pursuits. For them, it wasn't just art. It was a way of asserting their status, their stability, their cultural preeminence. It was a visible manifestation of their enduring power, even if their direct political grip was maybe loosening a bit.
Making a statement through culture. And what a cultural environment it was. I mean, the court aristocracy of the Heian era was just famed for its incredibly refined tastes, its really elaborate and strict codes of etiquette.
Etiquette was intense.
And an almost unbelievable output in both written and oral arts. This was a world where aesthetic sensitivity wasn't just admired, it was absolutely paramount. It was like the core currency of social interaction and influence.
Couldn't have put it better. Aesthetics ruled.
Major cultural developments flourished then too, right? Like the widespread popularity of waka poetry.
Yes, waka was huge.
Which wasn't just poetry, it was like this deeply personal, concise, 31-syllable expression, often exchanged as a really sophisticated form of social communication, like a subtle dance of emotion and wit.
Exactly. And you also saw the widespread adoption of the kana script.
Kana. That was important.
Hugely important. It's a phonetic Japanese syllabary, which made writing much more accessible than the complex Chinese characters used before. And crucially, this contributed to the emergence of women as incredibly prominent literary voices.
Right, because kana was seen as more suitable or easier for women to use.
Well, it was certainly used more readily by women for personal writing, diaries, and fiction, partly because formal documents often still used Chinese characters, which was more the domain of men in official roles. But kana really freed them up. Freed from the more formal public sphere of Chinese characters, women at court used kana to create these deeply personal prose works, diaries, novels, providing unparalleled insights into court life and their inner emotional landscapes.
So Murasaki Shikibu, the author of Genji.
Precisely. She's the prime example. In this highly sophisticated society, a perfectly composed poem, elegantly written on, say, a perfumed scroll or a kimono chosen with exquisite attention to color and season, that could wield as much social, maybe even political influence as direct maneuvering.
Wow.
It was a world where beauty, poetry, and emotional nuance were the true arbiters of status and power. And right at the heart of this cultural milieu lies the source text for our Imaki, Murasaki Shikibu's epic novel, The Tale of Genji.
It's just astonishing to think this work is from around 1000 AD. Murasaki Shikibu penned this incredible novel, 54 chapters long, and it's often called the world's first psychological novel. Truly groundbreaking stuff.
Absolutely groundbreaking. The depth is incredible.
It delves so deeply into the intricate cycles of love, power, loss, experienced by the court elite. exploring their motivations, their inner conflicts, their complex relationships with a depth that was just unprecedented for its time. But what really sets it apart, and what's so central to its narrative and philosophy, and therefore the Imaki too, is this concept of mono-no-aware.
Ah, yes. Mono-no-aware. This is key. And it raises a critical question for the art. How does a visual art form, like the Imaki, truly capture something as nuanced and profound as mono-no-aware?
Yeah, how do you paint a feeling like that?
Right. It's not just about depicting scenes, it's about conveying a deeply felt philosophy. Mono-no-aware is, well, it's often translated as the pathos of things, but it's more like a bittersweet awareness of the impermanence of everything.
Bittersweet. I like that.
It's a profound appreciation for beauty that is inherently fleeting, coupled with this gentle sadness at its inevitable passing. It's that quiet melancholy you feel when cherry blossoms fall breathtakingly beautiful, but you know they won't last.
Or like a perfect moment, can't last forever.
Exactly that feeling, the exquisite poignancy of a happy moment, knowing deep down that it cannot last. The Imaki doesn't just illustrate this concept. It feels like it embodies it in every brushstroke, every color choice.
And understanding mono-no-aware is absolutely key then to appreciating the profound emotional depth of the Imaki.
Completely.
It's about finding beauty in those fleeting moments, acknowledging the sadness and change, recognizing the impermanence of life itself. It feels like a universal human experience, just wrapped in the specific aesthetics of high-end Japan. And the Imaki portrays it with such incredible sensitivity that it just transcends its historical context and speaks directly to us today.
It really does connect across the centuries.
Okay, so now that we have a sense of the world the Imaki came from and the philosophy sort of permeating it, let's peel back another layer and look at how they actually brought this world to life. Because what they did with paint and paper was truly revolutionary, especially within the Imakemono tradition itself.
Yeah, the techniques are fascinating.
As we touched on earlier, this format, text and image unfolding sequentially on a horizontal scroll, it allows for this temporal progression of the narrative that was just incredibly innovative for its time.
And that format isn't just, decorative. It's absolutely integral to the storytelling and how the viewer experiences it. It dictates the pace. It controls precisely how and when the viewer gets new information and visual cues.
Like a director controlling the shots.
Exactly. Imagine a director meticulously choreographing every shot, every scene transition. The Imakemono artist achieved this by controlling the sequence of viewing. It's a deliberate reveal, a controlled unfolding of the story that demands active participation from the viewer who, like we said, literally moves the narrative forward with their hands.
You're physically involved.
Right. In many ways, the Imakemono can be seen as this sophisticated precursor to modern sequential narrative media. It influenced how we consume stories frame by frame. In a linear way, think graphic novels or even the continuous panning shots in early cinema. The very act of unrolling and re-rolling shapes and becomes the experience.
What's even more remarkable, though, is the Genji Monogatari Umaki's unique position in art history. Not just as an Imaki, but specifically as a pioneer of a whole new artistic style.
Yes, that's a crucial distinction.
It holds the distinction of being both the oldest surviving Imaki example that isn't religious in nature. Most earlier scrolls were about Buddhist themes, right?
Correct. Mostly religious before this.
And it's the earliest known representative of the Yamato style.
Which means it didn't just tell a story, it set the standards. Both the formal standards and the iconographic ones, the symbols, the visual language for an entirely new, distinctly Japanese artistic tradition.
So it was defining Japanese art.
In many ways, yes. Before Yamato, a lot of Japanese painting was heavily influenced by Chinese aesthetics. Grand landscapes, very detailed figure drawing. But with the Genji Monogatari Imaki, we see this deliberate, confident move away from those foreign influences to establish a native aesthetic.
What characterized that native aesthetic?
This Yamato style emphasized Japanese subjects, often focusing on court life, Japanese landscapes, and this unique emotional sensibility we've been talking about. It pioneered a visual language that was intimately connected to Japanese literature, poetry, and aristocratic culture. It established a visual identity that would really define Japanese painting for centuries to come.
So who were the geniuses behind this? The mysterious hands behind this incredible work, this foundational masterpiece?
Well, that's one of the intriguing parts. The identities of the individual artists remain largely unknown, which is fascinating in itself given how significant it is.
No single-named master.
For a long time, the work was popularly attributed to a renowned artist named Fujiwara no Takayoshi. That attribution kind of spoke to the desire, maybe, for a single master behind such a grand vision.
Sure, that makes sense.
However, modern research, through really painstaking stylistic analysis and historical contextualization, suggests a more complex truth. It's now widely believed that this was a collaborative effort.
A workshop.
Exactly. Undertaken by multiple master artists and calligraphers working together within a specialized court workshop.
And the patronage behind it must have been huge.
Oh, absolutely. Equally grand. Reflecting the immense resources and cultural ambition of the Heian elite, the probable thunders. We're looking at powerful figures like retired Emperor Toba or perhaps Goshirakawa, who wielded significant cultural and political influence.
So big names funding it.
Definitely. This wasn't just a simple art commission. The production of such a magnificent work was a grand display of artistic patronage by the highest levels of the court aristocracy. It wasn't just art for art's sake. It was a profound statement.
A statement of what?
Of their power, their sophisticated tastes, their cultural dominance. It was a visible, enduring manifestation of their wealth and influence, intended to impress, to solidify their position, and, to leave a lasting cultural legacy. The very act of its creation speaks volumes about the priorities of that time.
Okay, let's talk about the actual brushstrokes of emotion then. The brilliant techniques and compositions that make this scroll so revolutionary and, well, emotionally resonant.
Yeah, let's get into the nitty-gritty.
One of the primary techniques they used is called tsukuri. That translates to layered production, right?
That's right, tsukuri.
So how did they create these incredible luminous visuals? These seem to almost glow from within.
It's a fascinating process. First, an artist would lay down a fine ink sketch, just establishing the basic forms and the composition. Then clings the true magic of tsukuri. Thick, rich layers of opaque mineral pigments.
Mineral pigments, like actual ground-up rocks.
Pretty much, yeah. Think vibrant colors like azurite blue, malachite green, lead white. They were meticulously applied, often in broad, flat areas.
Okay, thick layers of color. Then what?
And here's the crucial and maybe counterintuitive part that really distinguishes it. After these thick layers of color were applied and totally dried, the final, delicate outlines of the figures and forms were then re-emphasized on top of the dried paint.
On top, not underneath.
Exactly. It challenges our modern understanding of painting, where outlines often guide the color application. The tsukuri process creates this unique visual effect. You get intense color saturation combined with striking linear clarity. It gives the paintings a remarkable depth and that almost glowing aesthetic you mentioned.
Wow.
It's a deliberate choice in the Yamatoe style that results in this distinct, rich, almost jewel-like appearance. It just draws you into the scene with its visual intensity. It's a testament to incredible precision and a unique artistic vision.
But maybe the most visually striking and definitely emotionally powerful technique they used is fukinuki-yata, often translated as the blown-off roof technique.
Yes, fukinuki-yata, that one's instantly recognizable.
It's this ingenious method where they depict interior scenes by quite literally blowing off the roof and ceiling of a building. It allows for this diagonal, almost bird's-eye view directly into the rooms below.
And what's truly genius about fukinuki-yata isn't just that it's a clever perspective trick. It serves a profound emotional and narrative purpose.
How so?
By removing the roof, the viewer is granted this intimate, almost voyeuristic glimpse into the private worlds of the characters. It's not just about showing you what's inside, it's about making you a privileged observer.
You're seeing things you maybe shouldn't be seeing.
Kind of. And the architectural details, the precise distances between characters, the very layout of these interior spaces, all of it becomes an active conveyor of feelings, like tension, loneliness, or intimacy.
So the space itself tells the story.
In large part, yes. For example, a character physically isolated by screens or separated from others by empty floor space that can visually communicate their emotional distance without a single explicit facial expression. It allows the viewer to just absorb the emotional atmosphere of a scene, even without seeing overt faces. It's like a 1,000-year-old form of visual psychology.
So what does this all mean? They're literally inviting you into the scene, giving you this God's eye view of the character's innermost worlds, this privileged insight into their private thoughts, all without ever really showing their faces in detail.
Exactly. Which brings us to another fascinating technique, Haikime Kajibana.
Line eye, hook nose.
Precisely. And this one truly challenges our modern expectations of character portrayal. Instead of detailed, expressive faces, characters' faces are rendered in this standardized, almost typological way. short horizontal lines for eyes, and these simple hook-shaped noses.
No smiles, no frowns.
Barely ever. Emotions are almost never conveyed through detailed facial mimicry or overt expressions, which is, a stark contrast to many Western artistic traditions. Instead, the artists relied on more subtle, indirect means.
Like what?
Like the nuanced portrayal of body language, the strategic use of large blocks of color to evoke a certain mood, meticulous environmental details. It demands that the viewer actively read the scene deeper. You have to focus on the overall atmosphere, the symbolic meaning of gestures, the arrangement of figures, the rich tapestry of the surroundings.
So you're looking for clues everywhere but the face.
Pretty much. For instance, a slumped posture, a hand hidden inside a sleeve, or maybe a figure turning away that might signal grief or despair more powerfully than a visible tear. It's a highly sophisticated way of conveying complex psychological states without relying on overt realism. It forces a more meditative, interpretive engagement with the art.
And the overall orchestration of the visual narrative, composition, color, light, it's just masterful.
Oh, absolutely. Scenes within the scrolls are interconnected, often subtly, through things like seasonal transitions, creating this natural flow of time. You'll see poetic motifs woven in, symbolic plants and animals that echo the character's emotions or the narrative's themes, adding layers and layers of meaning.
And the color and light.
Particularly nuanced and deeply symbolic. Gold leaf, for instance, isn't just for showing off wealth. It's used to create these luminous halos, especially in night scenes.
Right.
And when it's placed on dark blue or green backgrounds, these shimmering golden particles don't just signal luxury, they often carry deeper symbolic meaning. Maybe referencing Pure Land Buddhism, this cosmological hope for a blissful afterlife.
Wow, even the gold has layers of meaning.
Definitely. Furthermore, the perspective isn't singular, like in Western linear perspective. It creates layers of depth in horizontal strips, guiding your eye through the scene, and every detail truly matters. From the precise way curtains are draped, to the specific arrangement of cushions, even the layers of clothing worn by the characters, these all offer crucial visual clues. Clues to class hierarchy, social standing, subtle emotional states.
It's like a code.
It really is. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the use of color and composition isn't just about beauty, it's a meticulously coded language. Every detail, from a specific plant whose meaning would be instantly known to the Heian court to the way a curtain falls, carries symbolic weight about the character's emotions or social status. It transforms the painting into this complex visual poem.
Okay, let's step inside some of the surviving scenes then and really feel how these techniques and philosophies come to life. Because it's one thing to talk about tsukuri or fukinuki yatai in theory.
Right, seeing is believing.
But it's another to see how these elements create such profound emotional impact. Let's start with the Aoi chapter. This scene depicts Princess Aoi's possession by an evil spirit, a really dramatic, unsettling moment in the novel. And the fukinuki yatai technique is used here to just devastating effect, right? It perfectly reveals the interior of her chamber, letting us peer into her distress with almost uncomfortable intimacy.
It's a powerful example. In this particular scene, you see the soothsayers praying intensely on the left side of the composition. Their forms are kind of rigid with concentration as they try to exorcise the spirit.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Genji, the protagonist, he looks on anxiously from the right, but he's separated from the main action by these prayer mats spread on the floor, creating this visual and emotional distance.
He can't reach her.
Exactly. And the dominant use of this rich, deep purple pigment throughout the scene is highly symbolic. It not only highlights Aoi's nobility purple, being a color traditionally associated with the highest ranks, but it also subtly references the wisteria flower, or Fuji in Japanese, which shares sounds with the Fujiwara family name.
So a political hint, too.
It adds a layer of political subtext, yeah, suggesting how even personal suffering is deeply intertwined with the fate and anxieties of the ruling elite. This scene powerfully conveys that spiritual turmoil happening within the rigid confines of aristocratic life. It uses that architectural perspective to emphasize psychological distance, the feeling of helplessness, an almost suffocating sense of entrapment.
Then there's the Yugao chapter, a deeply poignant scene capturing the sudden tragic death of Genji's beloved Yugao. This feels like a moment of pure mono no aware, visualized with startling clarity.
Indeed. It's heart-wrenching. In this scene, there's this pale brown curtain depicted right behind the sleeping Genji, who's just overcome with grief. And this seemingly simple detail, it's rendered with incredibly fluid, almost ethereal brushstrokes. It subtly hints at the separation of spirit and body as Yuga's life slips away, like the material world is blurring with the spiritual.
Just a curtain tells that story.
It does, and the scroll also includes a short waka poem within the text portion, speaking of a prophetic wind, which adds to the mournful atmosphere and foreshadows the tragedy.
Wow.
And if you look really closely, it's almost invisible. Unless you know it's there, you'll see this delicate sprinkling of gold dust between the lines of the text and within the scene itself. A subtle touch suggesting maybe celestial intervention, the sacredness of the moment, or perhaps just the ethereal nature of the passing spirit.
Beautiful, but so sad.
It perfectly embodies mono no aware. It shows a fleeting moment of intense beauty and love just irrevocably broken by the harsh reality of impermanence. The artistic choices here really amplify the sadness and mystique of the event. It invites deep contemplation on mortality.
And finally, let's look at the Sawarabi chapter. This scene feels almost like a visual whisper. It portrays the profound loneliness and contemplative mood of Genji's son, Kaoru, and it's conveyed masterfully not through his face, but through the depiction of spring ferns, the Sawarabi.
Yes, the ferns are key here. What makes this scene so compelling is how the natural environment becomes an absolute extension of the character's internal state, a mirroring of his soul.
Wow.
You see these horizontal, parallel grass brushstrokes that create this visual rhythm throughout the composition. It's almost like a quiet, mournful hum. This isn't just a pretty landscape background. It actively reflects and amplifies Kaoru's introspective and melancholy mood. It's almost as if the landscape itself is sighing with him, sharing his quiet sorrow.
The landscape feels his sadness.
Exactly. This particular scene is often cited by art historians as a prime example of how melancholy fuses with nature in Heian art. The natural environment isn't just a setting, it becomes an active embodiment of the character's internal emotional landscape. It evokes this powerful sense of empathy and shared experience. It's an incredibly sophisticated form of emotional communication.
It truly is. It's like the landscape itself is feeling what the character feels, creating this seamless, almost spiritual connection. That's an incredibly powerful, nuanced way to show emotion without a single tear or frown on a face. It pushes us as viewers to look beyond the obvious and read the subtle language of color, form, and environment.
It asks a lot of the viewer in a good way.
Now, beyond the image, there's this whole other layer to the imaki that maybe often gets overlooked. The text itself. The art of calligraphy is a crucial component here, totally inseparable from the visual narrative.
Absolutely. The text is art, too.
The text within these scrolls is rendered in multiple exquisite calligraphic styles. You've got flowing cursive scripts, more formal block-like characters. It creates this challenging maybe, but visually rhythmic reading experience. It's not just words to be read, it's an aesthetic experience in its own right. The beauty of the handwriting adds another dimension to the narrative.
And what's fascinating here is that even the writing itself is, yes, a work of art, but also a profound puzzle and a philological treasure.
Philological.
Meaning it's incredibly valuable for understanding the history of the language and the text itself. This calligraphy is considered invaluable because it preserves a rare pre-Taika variant of the Tale of Genji novel text.
Pre-Taika. Who was Taika?
Fujiwara no Taika. He was a highly influential scholar and poet in the 13th century who later standardized the text of Genji. He basically established the version that's most commonly studied today.
So the scrolls have an older version of the text.
Exactly. These scrolls offer invaluable insights into the early transmission and evolution of the novel. They provide scholars with this unique window into its original form, shedding light on how the text was read and understood centuries ago before Taika's edits. It's a testament to the comprehensive artistry of the entire scroll, where even the words are crafted with aesthetic intent and profound historical significance. It links literature, visual art, and the history of writing itself.
Amazing. And underlying all of this, the art, the text, the history, are the core themes and philosophical underpinnings that just resonate throughout the Imaki, making it feel relevant today, 1,000 years later.
Yeah. The themes are incredibly timeless.
The scrolls repeatedly explore the fragility of that court hierarchy, which, in Heian Japan, was so often based on birth privilege and intricate social custom rather than, actual merit or ability. That must have led to constant anxieties and subtle power plays.
Oh, definitely. Pervasive anxieties about succession to power. And the fleeting, transient nature of love relationships often fraught with heartbreak and societal constraints, and just a deeply pervasive sense of loss running through it all.
And mono no aware again.
It's everywhere. The concept of mono nowhere isn't just illustrated, it's reinforced in practically every scene, woven into the very fabric of the visual storytelling.
Also, visually.
It's conveyed through the deliberate depiction of seasonal flora, right? Their transient beauty evokes the passage of time. Those subtle color gradients we discussed, which shift and fade like emotions, and the often enclosed, intimate atmospheres of the interior spaces, which can feel both comforting and isolating at the same time.
Right.
All these elements conspire to evoke that bittersweet awareness of impermanence, of beauty that passes, and moments that just cannot be reclaimed. Furthermore, the synthesis of text and image in the Imaki offers these profound insights into the experiences of female characters.
Their perspective.
Yes, their joys, their sorrows, their often limited agency within the strict confines of the court, their reliance on male figures. It really illuminates contemporary gender roles and societal expectations within Heian society. It's a deep exploration of the human condition, really stripped bare of time.
And this is why these ancient scrolls remain so remarkably relevant to us today, isn't it? These universal themes, hierarchy, power struggles, the fleeting nature of happiness, that profound awareness of life's inherent impermanence, they're timeless.
Absolutely timeless.
They connect directly to universal human experiences, regardless of our era or culture. It makes this ancient work remarkably resonant, even in our fast-paced modern world. It speaks to something fundamental about the human condition, about what it means to live and love and lose.
Well said.
Let's talk about the incredible journey through time that these scrolls themselves have taken. Their conservation, their lasting legacy. These masterpieces have their own fascinating story of survival. It's a testament to human dedication, really.
It truly is, the fact they exist at all.
In the 1930s, for crucial reasons of preservation, the scrolls were actually meticulously dismantled, and the individual paintings and text leaves were framed. This was apparently a common and necessary practice at the time to protect delicate works from further damage caused by repeated rolling and unrolling.
Yeah, handling them is the biggest risk over centuries.
However, in this truly remarkable and painstaking effort between 2016 and 2020, so quite recently, they were painstakingly reassembled back into their traditional scroll format, restoring their original interactive viewing experience. That must have been a monumental achievement in conservation.
Monumental is the word. That reassembly highlights the extraordinary challenges of preserving such ancient and fragile materials. And because of their extreme light sensitivity, those pigments are incredibly delicate.
Right, they can't be exposed much.
Exactly. The original scrolls can only be displayed for a mere few days each year. Public viewing is incredibly rare. This scarcity of direct viewing makes high-resolution digital scans incredibly important.
So we can study them digitally.
Precisely. These detailed scans are now available to researchers worldwide, allowing for in-depth study and analysis without risking the originals. And scientific insights from pigment analysis. They've revealed fascinating details.
Like what?
Like the sophisticated use of both indigenous Japanese natural minerals, malachite, azurite, like we mentioned, and surprisingly, exotic materials like lapis lazuli, which was sourced all the way from Afghanistan.
Afghanistan, in the 12th century.
Yep. Tells us not only about ancient trade routes and the global connections of the Heian court, but also the immense value placed on these materials. We also know that animal glue, nikawa, was used as a binder. That provided crucial flexibility between the paint layers, helping the scrolls withstand repeated rolling and unrolling over centuries without cracking or flaking too much.
So what does this all mean? This isn't just about preserving a beautiful piece of art. It's about this fascinating intersection of ancient craftsmanship, global trade networks, modern scientific analysis, all coming together to understand how it was made, its hidden stories, and, to ensure it lasts for centuries more.
Exactly. But beyond its physical preservation, the Imaki's influence extends far into the history of art, shaping future generations of Japanese visual culture.
How did it influence later art?
Well, the Genji Monogatari Imaki profoundly shaped the future of narrative painted scrolls in Japan. It established an artistic grammar, a visual language that would be emulated and developed. Later 12th and 13th century works like the dynamic Shigisan Engi, the Legends of Mount Shigi, or the more intimate Murasaki Shikibu Diary Imaki.
Oh, based on her diary.
Yes, they explicitly built upon and further developed the visual syntax established by the Genji scroll, refining its narrative techniques, its visual style. And its impact wasn't limited to its immediate successors either. Centuries later, during the Edo period, 1603 to 1868,
Much later.
much later, the renowned Tosa school of painting, which was known for its emphasis on native Japanese themes and narrative scrolls, produced numerous copies of the Genji Umaki. It shows its continued importance, its revered status as a foundational masterpiece.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. But you mentioned manga and anime.
Yeah, and here's where it gets truly surprising. Creating this direct lineage across centuries of visual storytelling, in a really unexpected twist, traces of the horizontal scroll logic, that panel scrolling technique we talked about, where you move from scene to scene horizontally, controlling the pace.
Right, the unrolling.
That logic can actually be found, subtly yet powerfully, in the modern manga and anime industries.
No way. How?
Absolutely. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it demonstrates how artistic innovations from centuries ago can subtly yet profoundly continue to influence contemporary visual storytelling. Think about how many manga pages are structured to be read from right to left, moving horizontally across panels.
Huh, I never thought of it that way.
Or how animation sequences are often built upon a series of unfolding scenes, sometimes using pans that mimic that unrolling feel. This scroll, the Genji Monogatari Maki, it laid foundational groundwork for how we consume sequential art today. It created a precedent for immersive, paced storytelling that transcends time. From ancient hand scrolls experienced panel by panel to the comic books and animated series you might watch today, it's a direct, kind of unbroken lineage of narrative innovation.
That is genuinely mind-blowing. So as we wrap up this deep dive, it's just abundantly clear that the Genji Monogatari Maki is far, far more than just a collection of beautiful pictures illustrating an old novel.
Too much more.
It's this complex, multi-layered tapestry woven from 11th century literature, 12th century painting, exquisite poetry, intricate calligraphy, and, well, profound philosophy.
It serves as this uniquely intimate visual and intellectual map of the Heian aristocracy, their society, their politics, their entire intellectual and emotional life. And it reveals these timeless human experiences of love, loss, the search for meaning, every single layer, from the exotic materials used to its deep philosophical underpinnings, from its meticulous composition to its very story of survival and reassembly. It makes it a permanent, undeniable landmark in Japanese art and truly in global visual culture. It's a work that really asks us to slow down, to observe, and ultimately to feel.
It's a truly humbling experience, isn't it, to engage with something so ancient, yet so vibrantly insightful and emotionally resonant. So as you go about your day, maybe experiencing a story on your screen or in a graphic novel, consider this maybe provocative thought.
Mm-hmm.
How does our understanding of an artwork, or really any narrative, change when we realize it was designed to be unrolled and experienced over time, rather than just viewed as a static image or consumed instantly?
That's a great question, the element of time.
And what does the enduring influence of this ancient scroll on modern animation tell us about the fundamental human need for narrative? And the innovative, timeless ways we've always found to tell stories that connect across centuries.
Yeah.
Think about how a deep dive into such a historical artifact can offer insights into the very nature of visual storytelling itself, from ancient scrolls right up to your favorite streaming shows. It reminds us that truly groundbreaking art is never just confined to its own time.
It keeps speaking to us